Welcome to another edition of the Daily Night. I am your host, Brian Smith, and here is my co-host, Mr. Johnson. Hey, man, what's going on? You ready to get some recruiting news out there to the world?
Yes, sir, buddy. Thank you for the introduction, Brian. I love being on the show. Ready to get started, buddy.
All right. Today, I just kind of want to go back over the kids that have signed with UCF, a little bit of information at the end on some other kids. I got actually two kids. There's one I haven't even told you about, but there's going to be a few changes in the way recruiting works this year and moving forward with the second signing day that comes around every year in February. People might as well get used to it because most of the information will be out in December, and that's fine. But there is one caveat, and that's the transfer portal. As I say, it seems like at least every other podcast, it's 365 days a year. And I expect Coach Malzahn and or somebody from his staff to jump on board with the press conference pretty soon and kind of give us the rundown on what they think about the transfer portal guys. So that's coming up. I'm not going to really mince a whole lot of words about that. So let's dive in. We're going to do this a little different than most, usually start quarterback, then go all the way to safety. We're going to reverse it. We're going to start with DBs. There are 3 DBs that UCF signed. I mean, it really could not have gone, Andrew, any better.
Yeah.
At DB, they got length, they got speed, they got local kids, they got highly coveted kids.
With the new coaching staff, I think they did a solid job.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is a good sign. And I think that UCF is like any other school. You can never have enough corners. And they got a young secondary. We talked about that a lot in the booth during games. Like, hey, they're starting to pick this up. They're getting it. And now they add these guys too. That is going to be a competitive defensive back room at UCF. Thank goodness, because everybody, it seems like, can spin it. If you can't play DB, I don't care what league you're in, you're going to get smoked.
And you need that depth. And as we talked about, going into the Big 12, so they needed it.
Absolutely. So the 3 guys in question are Jalen Martinez. He's a defensive back. He plays at one of my favorite programs in the country, not just Florida, in Apopka. It's on the northwest side of Orlando. And then the 2 brothers, the twins, the Henderson Twins, Damari and Jakari. One plays safety, one plays corner. They play at Seminole, which is a rival, ironically, of Apopka, and they all know each other. And it's one of the reasons they're so competitive. They live 25 minutes apart from each other. But anyway, those 3 players can play for any school in the country, and UCF not only gets them, but the quote-unquote stay-home order is at least starting to take effect. They're a long way from where they want to be. They're still losing kids from Orlando like any other major city program, but that's a great start.
You had to go out and get some dogs, and those 3 are definitions of a dog on defense. Hard-nosed, physical guys. So I wanted to ask you, Brian, because you've seen these guys in person, and we talk about Martinez. We know he's a solid corner who can cover, he can tackle. What can he provide to the defensive group maybe early on being a freshman?
I think his toughness, especially his mental toughness. I've known Nakai for a couple of years, and he's not your typical kid. He has zero fear.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen him get beat, and then on the next play, doesn't bother him. That's one of, if not the biggest thing that you need to have as a big-time corner, because I don't care who you are. Jalen Ramsey last week against the Buccaneers got smoked on a deep ball.
Yep.
He thought the play was over. He hesitated. And then a certain wide receiver who's got a Hall of Fame career possibly going got in front of him, stacked him, and caught a touchdown.
Beat him.
This just in, Jalen is, by most people's account, the best corner in the world.
Yes, sir.
It's going to happen to everybody. Everybody makes a mental error. So with a young guy like Martinez, who's still learning and all that, he's a savvy kid, plays man, he can play press, he can play nickel, etc. He's a kid, I think, that can come in and they'll find a role for him. I have no idea what they're going to do early, but you and I had talked about once they lost, I don't even know how many defensive players overall, but last year was atrocious with injuries. Once they lost their monster back, their knight, that position, the guy goes down. They brought in a DB to play basically a linebacker spot. That's not where you want to be. UCF is building linebacker depth. That's the one concern I have on the defensive side of the ball for next year, and they'll probably hit the portal a little bit more for that. Martinez, although $175, $180, his physical toughness and his mental toughness, especially against a team like SMU that likes to throw, he can play that nickel spot as a freshman. Most freshmen, I wouldn't even remotely consider that option because, quite frankly, they're not physical enough.
Yeah.
I'm never going to worry about that one to Kai.
Right.
He will punch you in the mouth for, not literally, but in a sense that this is my style.
Yeah.
Who I am. You may beat me.
But and it pops out. His physicality literally pops out when you watch him on film. So that's a great point. Yeah. And, go ahead.
He's the reason they beat Seminole, who won state title last year. He had a pick six in the game. I got it on film. And I mean, it's just one of those plays, close games like that. Coaches always say, oh, who wins the turnover battle? Well, no kidding. Not only did he get a turnover, he turned it into 6. There's an old stat in the NFL that's gone on for like 30 years. Teams that get a pick 6 or a punt block for a score win like 75, 80% of the games. Well, I'm going to guess that happens at the college and high school level too.
Right.
It's a free touchdown. Think of yourself being up 7-0 with all the momentum and the clock just started. That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
It's hard to come back from those. And he's had a reputation of doing that his whole high school career. And he started at Apopka as a freshman. That does not happen.
Now, for those who are watching, how tough is the competition at Apopka?
That's a program that's had guys for a very long time going to the NFL. I mean, it's an NFL program. They've had guys. There's a certain defensive lineman at the University of Georgia right now that is the only reason he's not going to the draft is he's not eligible yet. They have that. His name's Carter. Every school in the country wanted him. That's the kind of kids they pump out. There's also, I don't like him. There's a certain defensive lineman that played with the Buccaneers forever that's from Apopka, played at Miami. I can't stand the guy, but he's an NFL Hall of Famer, Apopka. That's the difference between those kind of programs and others. They just had guys. Look, I could coach Carter. Yeah. He played right away at Georgia. He played fullback just for funsies against Florida as a freshman. He came from Apopka. That's why Gus Malzahn and the Knights are going to recruit that program. You have, like, if Carter played for UCF this last year, just, throw it out. It completely changes their defense. They'd have won a couple more games. Yeah. That's why you have to recruit Seminole, Apopka, Lake Mary, Lake Brantley, all that north suburb of Orlando is loaded. They have to recruit it. They know it. Yeah. So
building those relationships is going to be so important going forward.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And we talked about how hard it can be, UCF stacking up on the defensive secondary end. Let's kind of talk about the Henderson Twins. What do you think they can bring to the table? Because we know both of those guys are very talented, physical, similar to Martinez. So what can they bring to the defensive secondary early on?
They're very similar to Nakai. Again, they're rival programs, kids from a similar background. It's not going to be a situation they're going to sit. They're going to find a role for them. I imagine at least one of them will be a gunner on punt or kickoff or whatever. They have speed. They have length. These two it's the most fun for me in scouting them wasn't live at a game. It was sitting right here in my chair, putting on their huddle film and watching basketball because the high flying dunks they do are ridiculous. That they'll throw it off the backboard and then the other one will catch it and dunk it, stuff like that.
Chemistry, like we talked about, that brotherly chemistry is,
Yep, they're 6'1", 163. They're toothpicks, but they're lean and they're strong. They're going to add. They told me their goal was to get to about 180. Yeah. We'll see what they're going to enroll in the summer, but it only takes 3 to 5 months to put on 10 to 15 pounds. Pretty easy. It's not that big a deal. One of them, I don't know which one it'll be, will probably play a role sometime early in their career. Damari plays safety. He's always played safety. Jakari's always play corner. I don't know why they do that. That's just what they like. But somebody, again, has to play that nickel spot against a team that has a little more length in the slot. Maybe one of them gets to play. Right. It's just who can pick up the scheme. And those are things I can evaluate all day. It has zero to do with my ability to evaluate. That's just Travis and the staff giving them an opportunity. Yeah. It could be a guy on the roster already, or it could be Martinez or one of the Hendersons. We don't know.
Exactly. They'll have to separate themselves in the spring to earn play time. But like that both of those guys can return the ball. Oh, so another addition on the special teams regardless.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to kick to them. If they ended up on kick return, that would not be who I would punt to. Any of those three. Nakai's a return man too. Do not kick to them.
And just to stay in Seminole because they're producing a lot of talent, you got another kid coming out, Cameron Moore. Cam Moore, kind of talk about him a little bit, what he can bring at that linebacker position. I think he totaled 71 total tackles last season. So he's a solid guy. What do you like about him?
He is the leader of the defense, and he knows where everybody should go. I went to a defensive install practice at Seminole, and I don't even know how many times in a row. They had some younger kids they were working in, so they, you got to rotate guys. And he would stop what was going on and tell a guy to move, and the coaches wouldn't. They would just get out of the way and let him do it. That's really rare, especially at an 8A program coming off a state title. Yeah. So that told me, okay, he gets it. And B, he would take over a leadership role during games. Sometimes you get gashed or whatever. He would correct things. He was the guy that wanted to be the front and center guy, not just because he played middle backer, but because he understood chemistry and team defense win games. I talked to him about it some off the record and stuff, and he'd point like, this kid over here, you should watch this guy. This guy needs a little more help, etc. And he was cool with it. He just, we just got to kind of stay the course. That's first thing with him. And then second is no fear, kind of like the others. The North Orlando kids, they
high motor, physical, no fear. Yeah. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah, he try to put it in comparison for people that live in Florida. Think of some of the undersized linebackers that have played at Florida State, and Miami in the last 30 years. I'm not saying he's as talented as some of them. He's a kind of a late bloomer, but he can flat out run. He will hit, and he knows where to go. I just don't know which spot they're going to play him at. That will take care of itself. Yes, but if you think about Cameron Moore at 205, teams today run 3 and 4 wide on 1st and 10. He can play that quote unquote overhang position, which he did for Seminole. That's what he's already done because it's the same. The same offenses at the high school level now match college. Yeah. So the transition's a heck of a lot easier than it used to be when it was 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I think he'll play some, but he's most importantly special teams block. Number 2, he's going to have a role in nickel or dime at some point this year. There's going to be somebody get banged up. When it's just part of football. I'll bet you money he plays. I'll bet you money he plays. Which downs, which circumstances, I have no idea. He needs to gain 10 pounds, big deal. Anybody can gain 10 pounds. Yeah. He's about 205 right now. If he gets to 215, 220, he'll see his fair share of playing time.
And these guys got the spring and summer workouts, so they have time to put on weight, So that's not going to be that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we talked about a couple of the secondary, a little bit of the linebacker. Do you want to move on? Maybe talk about
Bullard is the hybrid kid that goes with
he's the safety as well. Yeah, we could talk about TJ Bullard a little bit out of Berkeley Prep.
He's a kid,
around 6'1", 190. He kind of he's a hard hitter. I watched that film. That's one thing that popped out to me. He's knocking kids. He knocked a kid helmet off. So what do you like about TJ? I know you've seen these guys, so just talk about him a little bit.
He's not like Cam in the terms of how talkative he is. Cam talking the whole time.
Coach.
He's that guy.
Right.
Bullard is Titus O'Neil's son. And for anybody that follows wrestling, they know who Titus O'Neil is. He's kind of the face of wrestling and he's an image guy. He played at Florida, didn't make it in the NFL, but then went into wrestling, is big. His real name's Thaddeus Bullard. He was a 5-star recruit out of Live Oak High School like 25 years ago. Every school in the country offered him. His kid is just not as big. I mean, Thaddeus was a D lineman, period. But his kid plays like a D lineman in the sense of downhill, fast, no fear.
No fear.
He is flat out undersized, but he's another kid. He'll play 210 by the time he finishes college, would be my guess. He's going to play multiple roles. Yeah. 20 years ago, he would not have had a spot, in my opinion, at UCF at his size, unless they just strictly played him at safety. And he could play it.
Yeah.
But now you can play him in the box. Number 1, he's physical. Yeah. But number 2, he's uber intelligent. For anybody that's from Tampa, they can probably tell you Berkeley Prep is one of those schools where like the Yankees players will send their kids or something like that. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Curriculum's tough.
Yeah. So academically, he will do fine and he will pick up on schemes. Yes, sir. No, sir, kid.
Yeah.
How many times you need me to run through the wall?
He can blitz too, man. If you watch his film,
his timing is good. Yeah. I saw him play in practice and I saw him play in games. He has a natural instinct to the game of football. I cannot wait to see how they use him. I'm quite honestly, out of everybody in this class, the most confused about where I want to peg him to be because he has so much weight to gain. There isn't one because he's going to move around.
It's like you want to put him at safety, but you want him to come up a little bit and feel that.
Yeah. Like against a team like SMU, he could be really valuable. One play he covers, then in the next play he acts like he's going to cover, and he comes off the nickel slot and sacks the quarterback. different variety of plays like that. They got a lot more aggressive. If you remember in the back half of the season, a kid like Bullock. Now that's a kid that you can, I know freshmen, you don't want to overwhelm them. He could be somebody you could give a little bit bigger playbook to. He's not your average kid. He's very intelligent. His dad is raised him good. He's been from a good family. This will go well for UCF. Again, I just don't know which position. We'll figure it out.
And really quick, just to throw out some numbers, I didn't think we talked about it in the beginning. Right now, the recruiting class, they're ranked, 45th in the nation, and they're ranked second in the conference. So how do you think the coaching staff is doing? What else do you think they could do to maybe, pull some guys in?
Well, two parts to your question. Number one, those rankings are garbage, and here's why. I don't care which publication it is. I've worked for multiple companies, Rivals, etc. They just go on a point system.
Yes, sir.
What that means is if you have a kid that's a quarterback that's ranked X, whatever number it is, and you have a left guard who's ranked the exact same. Now, which one do you think has more impact on the final score at the end of a game? Quarterback.
Yep.
Did UCF sign a quarterback that fits their scheme to a T? The answer is a resilient yes. I base all my recruiting classes, at least depending on the scheme, 1/3 of their recruiting class is quarterback. UCF hit a freaking home run. Thomas Castellanos fits. Second part of that, and this is nobody's fault yet, nobody knows how to rank classes for teams that are bringing in transfers. They have somewhat of a system, but I mean, the goal with recruiting, no matter if it's transfer, high school, junior college, prep school, community college, whatever, do you win games? And it's a checkbox.
Yeah.
UCF, look, there is nobody in the country that is going to tell me that Terrence Lewis coming to UCF does not change their defense. There is nobody in the country that is going to tell me that Lee Hunter is not going to change their defense. That's only two guys, but that's the difference between 7 wins and 10 wins, assuming quarterback does at least something. That's, the outcome. Yeah, I mean, I have no idea what's going to happen at quarterback. We've had a podcast about that.
Right.
That's aside. Everything is set up for UCF to win 10 games next year because of the transfer portal.
Yep.
Well, what do you recruit for? To win games. Yet they're 45th? Get out of here. There are a lot of schools that, and I know this flat out from being in meetings and knowing people, recruiting companies, they are there for clicks. Period. I get paid on clicks, but I'm not going to lie to you. If I get fewer and I'm honest, so be it. I'm not going to lie. This recruiting class is better than it should be. And there's some out there that are brand name football programs. They've got some good players, but they're going to take 2-3 years. And that's fine. Tradition rich schools in the SEC, even like Mississippi State, they never get ranked the way they should because they take a lot of JUCO kids and there's no information about those kids. Those Rivals or what, they can't make money on them the same way. They just don't. You think they're going to get the same ranking as Alabama? No. And, I'm not saying they have better classes, but if they had the exact same, Alabama's would be ranked higher because it makes them more money. Period. Just a little note. I know that's a pet peeve of mine. So
let me ask you really quick, because we kind of talked about this off air one time. Gus Malzahn at UCF did well recruiting in Georgia, but they didn't get a lot of guys in the Alabama area. What do you think it was? Let's talk about that a little bit.
They offered, the last I checked, in the numbers, they vary. Just because you offered somebody doesn't mean that offer hangs on forever because you fill up at spots. The last I remember, it was a little over 20 kids in Alabama, and they got 0. There's no way to cut it. That's atrocious. Having said that, that's where you have relationships. Alabama is there and Auburn is there, but they both primarily, like, the best city in the South now is Atlanta. I know everyone in Florida, people are going to bitch, well, it's Miami. Miami doesn't produce quarterbacks for crap. And that's just the truth. And that's why it's not as good as Atlanta to me, because it's the most important position. UCF hits that area. I just talked to Caden Lee last night, put a podcast up about it in an article on Inside the Knights. He's an Atlanta kid, plays with Cam Newton 7-on-7. Kirby Smart just took his helicopter to his high school. There's a reason they're going to recruit those kids. They're ready to play. Like Caden Lee would come in and play right away at UCF. They're getting 2-3 kids now. The next step for UCF, just like Alabama, etc., you have to get the Atlanta area players. I'm going back up there in a few weeks for the Under Armour event, and I can't wait. It's the absolute creme de la creme of talent across. It's the best broad-based talent in the country. It's the greater Atlanta to Birmingham out of that court. I think it's Highway 20 or whatever, Interstate 20. It's insane.
Yeah.
You have to hit some of those kids. Now, they didn't get anybody last year, and my guess is it's just kids aren't sure about UCF yet. But since they won some games, if they can start hot this fall, you and I talked about it in the podcast, a couple of them, if they beat Louisville and Georgia Tech, I will guarantee you, if they won, and it depends on timing, they'll get an Alabama kid or two. And then again, Florida will always be the base. Always.
Has to be, especially locally.
Yeah, locally. Like, well, you're a Polk County guy. Lakeland.
All that.
Lakeland to Cocoa, and even where I live in Tampa. I mean, it's just freaking loaded. You have to recruit these areas. I got a list over here on a notebook. I've got all kinds of podcasts lined up. They just offered a kid from Lakewood High School in St. Pete. It's a running back. He could play safety or what. They are recruiting kids all over Florida. That's fine. If you can just get 2 kids, let's say, from Atlanta, a kid from Birmingham, and a kid from Mobile, like Lee Hunter. He's from Blount High School in Mobile, famous program.
If you can hit all 3, Florida, Georgia, and Alabama,
yeah, you're good.
That's when
if you get a kid from Maryland or Dallas or something, that's fine. Those 3 states
has to be your core recruiting area,
and they have done an excellent job of that. So what if it's the old saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. They just need to add a little bit. I mean, they admit, you're over 21. That's terrible. Yeah. But it's going to take a while. They need to see it. Years 3, years 4, years 5, it'll pay off. It's just a long-term investment. They're always going to be able to get kids from Florida because it's local. And we'll talk about a couple of kids like that here in a second. But you have to recruit Alabama because half the staff was at Auburn or Troy or both.
Exactly.
So you got to go there.
And it's not to say they're not pulling a bunch of Auburn guys anyway.
Oh,
I just wish he would have landed a couple of Alabama, because football out in Alabama is very physical and tough. So that would have been great if he could have landed an Alabama guy. But I just wanted to hear your thoughts about what 0 for 20. That's a little. But
then they turn around and they get Hudson and they get Lee Hunter. They both played at Auburn, so you can call it whatever you want. I don't care. And last year they got Big Cat, who transferred from Auburn. It's just it doesn't.
A weird economy. Yeah. And just you talked about Lakeland a little bit. We covered pretty much most of the recruiting secondary, with Martinez, the Henderson Twins, and Bullock.
Yeah, it's D-line time now, baby.
It's D-line time, people, and I feel like this is going to be a important position for UCF. So because they lost a couple guys, but in Lakeland High School, we got Xavier Townsend. Good hands, like we talked about. Can jump off the ball fast, can draw double teams. So what do you like about him? You seen him in person, you seen the film. Just talk about him a little bit, man.
Kianist is one of the rarest players that you're ever going to meet. He's an introvert. He hates being interviewed, but because I literally would go to his games and his practices, he couldn't avoid me. He's a nice kid. Went to his press conference when he signed and all that. Good family, the whole 9. But he's one of those weird deals. Like when he's walking around, he's just kind of wants to be to himself and all that. Mm-hmm. When he puts the helmet on, I have no idea what goes on, but it's not the same person. He is, if he didn't have football, I would tell him flat out, you need to go to the Marines. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that is a follower, not a leader, but God gave him things that you do not teach. Yeah. I would not want to irritate him. Mm-hmm. And his first step, as you mentioned, is tremendous. And he's got pretty good handwork. They have good coaching at Lakeland, and they have forever. Coach Castle's a legend. He's a Hall of Famer here in the state of Florida, and he loved that kid. I had some conversations with Coach Castle about him, and he is not one to mince words. He is a very old school stickler coach from the 1970s through 1990s who's just likes coaching. He'll coach till he croaks.
Yeah, that's a fact.
He's that. He doesn't have, like, the day he retires, he'll basically like be Barrett Bryant. It'll be a few months and he'll pass. That's just what he does.
Yes, sir.
And that's not a negative, but it's just how he looks.
That's reality.
Mm-hmm. And he thought the world of him, and it's because of his effort.
Yeah.
There were kids that he would just whip at the line of scrimmage, a rip move, a slap, whatever it was, but the ball would go the other way. And, Lakeland's got guys all over the place. They got a half dozen DBs.
Oh, we know that.
Yeah, you're a Polk guy.
Yeah. And
it's insane how many guys they have in their secondary that will play college football. Yeah. They'll come downhill and make the tackle. Kianist didn't care. Numerous plays on his huddle, he would be just the way it lined up, they would run to the opposite side, run outside zone, toss sweep, screen. He may or may not get there, but it was hell on wheels, 100 mile an hour to wherever he could get to get as close to the football as possible every time. That is the military mentality. And, man, I tell you what, coaches eat that stuff up. Yeah. Is he going to play right away? It's hard to put your hand in the dirt as a freshman and play big-time college football. I have no idea. His sophomore year, I would bet my bottom dollar. He'll play a little bit this year, and he'll definitely, again, special teams, you got to find a way to get him on the field. He's not going to stay 5 years anyway. Redshirting him is a waste of your time. He's an NFL player. You just have to find a way to get him through this year and get him ready mentally because, again, God bless him.
Let me ask you really quick, Brian, because I feel like this is important, being a former player. One thing that coaches look for, and especially in the guys that we talked about, is about their attitude and are they coachable? So does any of the guys that we talked about have any of these problems off the field that might hinder their success?
Well, I mean, Quan Lee is a guy that's a fiery personality. He's got to mature. That's the one kid, and everybody knows it. He knows it. He's got to calm down or it ain't going to work. Yeah. That's the only kid in the class. Everybody else, I think they'll be fine.
Okay. And like you talked about, Thompson has that military mindset, disciplined guy that's very coachable. And he's part of that Bill Castle pipeline that Lakeland's built.
Oh, it's been forever, man. It's been forever.
I like that, brother. Jamal Johnson. I don't have too much on this brother.
I know him pretty well.
Defensive tackle,
Defensive end. He's an end.
My apologies. Talk about him a little bit and what can he add to the defensive end position.
It's interesting. The guy that played opposite him is Kenyatta Jackson. He got state player of the year by a lot of people. Freak. On measurables, he's the better player. The other day I was talking to John Garcia, who's the head recruiting guy for SI, and he knows football, and he's from right down the road from where that's at in South Florida. He told me when he saw both, Chaminade, they do not shy away from playing anybody. And flat out, he said there were a couple times that he saw him, and he thought Jamal outplayed Kenyatta, who got state player of the year. What does that tell you? That's number one. And I respect John as an evaluator because he's SI's number one recruiting guy, period. But number two, I've seen Kenyatta live and Jamal. You can't teach the length and the athleticism that Kenyatta has. He's going to Ohio State, put it in perspective.
Oh.
Yeah. Like he had an offer from every school before his junior year, pretty much. He's a freak. And this kid played just as well. UCF is getting a kid that's 6'1.5", 250, 255, so he doesn't fit the measurables.
Yeah.
But effort, technique, drive, and then he's gotten a lot stronger in the last year. I saw him his junior year live. I didn't see him this past season. He is the tweener guy that some schools don't take, but which they did 3 years later. He reminds me of the 1990s to mid-2000s Virginia Tech defensive end. They always took some undersized guys, 6'1", that ended up getting like 10 sacks. Jamal is that guy. If anybody has seen, I know that's probably a little for your time, but like they used to always have edge rushers that were tenacious. Jamal is that guy and really, really strong. He's a little more advanced than some of the guys at Tech used to take. They'd take a 6'1", 215 kid and put his hand in the dirt, which is very unusual. He's that guy at 255.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see what he does. I don't think he'll play a ton his freshman year, but he could. I mean, again, the measurables don't say it, but the effort, and he comes from a program he has been coached.
Yeah, so talk about that Hollywood, Florida. How's the competition out there? I know
it's the best in the world. Okay. And for his positions, like lineman, D lineman, and corner.
Offensive linemen, are they going up against 3, 4, 5-star offensive linemen?
Some, but O-line in Florida is it's about size down there. There's a lot of really big dudes, and some of them aren't as well coached, but at the same time, he's still getting the chance to go and chase the rabbits. He's chasing down screens against kids that are 5'9", 175. Again, like Keanis, he's got an effort that you can't teach. Smart kid, goes to a very good private school. All the above fits what he's doing. So I think Jamal has a chance to play fairly early. But like Keanis, I don't like projecting freshmen to start or anything like that if their hand is in the dirt. You got to prove it to me.
Let me ask you about similarity, because these are two young guys. How similar are they to Josh Seleskar? Because we know he's a young guy that had a lot of success early on.
Seleskar would probably resemble Keanis Thompson more because of the height. UCF does not have a Jamal Johnson right now, in my opinion, that's in the rotation. He's a little shorter. That's the only difference. But the difference between like your arm length is what's more important than your height. The difference between 2 inches in arm length is the difference between who does and who does not win the Super Bowl, because you reached out and deflected a pass. It gets popped up in the air. Linebacker picks it and takes it to the house. That's why coaches recruit length. You can't teach it. It's just fact. It's numbers. Keanis has what you're looking for. That's why Alabama offered. That's why Texas offered. That's why Miami offered. That's why Florida offered. Jamal didn't have anywhere near as many offers because he doesn't have the quote-unquote measurables. I still think he's going to be a very good player at UCF. And again, when you see him play, you'll see the effort, and that's what UCF is lucky to have. You can't put that in perspective until you put eyes on it. His film does not do him justice, and that's very important to know.
Okay. Well, Brian, I think that was the last defensive recruit.
Yeah.
Just really quick before we wrap the defensive guys up, just give me your last thoughts on the group as a whole.
Speed, for the most part, length and upside. There's a couple of kids that are in the traditional UCF mold, meaning we need to see what they do long-term, and that's the 2 linebackers. They both need to add weight, but they're both downhill, fast, physical kids. And then you have the D linemen and the corners who are more physically ready, and the safety too, Damari. Yeah. All those kids can run and they fit the position. Now you just have to see, do they adjust to the scheme? I think all of those guys can play early. It's just easier to do it at DB because it's not like if a 320-pound offensive tackle lays into you, it's not going to go well if you're a freshman. It's just not. Even Kenyatta Jackson, who's going to Ohio State, he's going to get whooped on a play this next fall at Ohio State, and he's going to be like, I am not in South Florida anymore. That's part of it. How those kids adjust is the difference between who does and who does not play their freshman year. I can't grade film on that. Travis can't grade it either. He's the defensive coordinator. But overall, the upside is tremendous. And they also, obviously, they finalized that group. Like they added Hunter. You put Hunter next to we're good.
Yeah.
Well, he's a true one technique. And that, again, I know we're not going to talk about transfers in this, but that's the difference in recruiting today as even 3 years ago. It's completely changed. So I'm excited about it.
Yes, sir.
Offensively, it's pretty exciting too. But defense, I think they needed the more boom for bang for their buck, and they got it. And I'm very happy about that for UCF.
And you're I think I'm most high on Martinez. I think he has the highest ceiling. I think he'll learn the playbook fast, and I think he'll be able to provide some playing time.
Very well too.
Yeah,
he could. I don't have one guy per se, but that's a good problem to have. Yeah. If I did, I'd be more concerned.
So, do you want to transition to the offensive group?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, first guy I want to talk about out of Ware County. You know this guy personally. I think everyone knows this guy. Everyone's high on him. Thomas can you say his last name for me?
Castellanos.
There we go. This kid is a 3-sport athlete, plays football, basketball, soccer, has the arm strength, has the competitiveness, has the attitude. Outstanding athlete, can run with his legs, can run that Gus Malzahn RPO offense. So just kind of talk about Thomas a little bit for the people that's watching, and what can he provide in that quarterback room? It's going to be a competitive battle. Talk about him a little bit, brother.
Thomas is the most unique recruit arguably in the Southeast. And I'm not saying he's the best. It's just that literally because I asked him this off the record, I'm like, okay, these other schools are recruiting you. Who was recruiting you at what spot? Florida State was running back. South Carolina and Clemson, if I recall, both wanted him at DB. And Georgia was receiver, or one of them, but like 3 different spots, and then Gus wanted him at quarterback. I don't know if I've ever seen a guy recruited at by major programs by as many different spots as Thomas. And then I went to see him play against Warner Robins, who won state title again this year. They were the only team to beat him. And it's because they couldn't tackle Thomas. He had a pretty good game, but his arm strength is off the chain. He has the ability to make guys miss like a tailback. and he can run in the open field like a flanker. You're going to find a hole for him. I don't know if he'll end up long-term at quarterback. I think he will for Gus because he fits that. Think of Nick Marshall from 2013 for Auburn, which they went to the National, with a lot more strength. Like Thomas changed his body from his junior to senior year, from the hip to the knee. He did a lot of squats, hang cleans, power cleans, all that stuff. And I walked up to him on the field and I'm like, man, you've been eating. You look different. And he just laughed. And like he was throwing passes, and I'm like, your arm strength also changed.
Yeah.
He made some off-platform throws against his body, going left. He's right-handed, going left, sidearm, and throwing like a back shoulder fade. Like
that was the X factor for me.
Yeah. Like he's inconsistent. He missed a touchdown in that game, but he has the capability. He just needs somebody to every day you work with him. College coaches have a lot more time. His ceiling is NFL, but he could also be a guy that never starts at quarterback. He's a boomer bust guy because he has all the physical tools, but number one factor with quarterback is accuracy. That's not his strength yet. Does he develop it? I don't know, but I can tell you this: he could be 1,000-yard rusher and only carry the ball, 150 times. He's freak. So he's a guy that can take it 75 yards on a busted play and score.
Yeah. So the thing that separates him from me is his ability to keep his eyes down the field. When he gets pressured, he can make a few plays in the backfield and still keep his eyes down the field and deliver a long ball accurately. That's what popped out on film to me.
He made a few plays in that game against Warner Robins. The other DN, they have a college player. They got Vic Burley, who's a top 10 national recruit in the junior class. He was the only guy he knew where he was at all time. But everybody else was good too, and he made guys fall down. He broke tackles. He would spin off of them. I asked him, I said, you set these up in your head? He goes, no, I just do it naturally.
Man,
that's what you're looking for. So
that's superstar in this, you know what I'm saying? And they need that. I feel like he maybe can be, like you said, we don't know yet, but he could possibly be the next big UCF quarterback to graduate from there. Not on a Dante Culpepper level or anything like that, but he can finish his career top of rushing yards and get the passing yards as well. But I want to ask you about him because I got a concern, because we know he's not the biggest guy. So do you have any concern that injuries might be a thing that hinders his career, because he'll run the ball a lot and he may take a few hits? It can limit the playbook for him. So just talk about that a little bit.
He's about 200 pounds now, just under. He's gained a lot of weight. The only thing I'm concerned about are shoulder injuries. He's a thick kid. Like, he can play tailback at Florida State.
Yeah. You said he's stronger than he looks. So.
Oh, well, when I walked up to him, he was a lot bigger than I thought, too. Physically. Like, he's 5'11", 6 foot. Yeah. But that part, Drew Brees is about 5'11" and a half, too. I'm not worried about that part. Yeah. I'm worried about, like you said, hits. The only thing I'm worried about are these. Shoulders are atrocious to repair. Takes forever. You can't have shoulder injuries, and he's a runner. That's one of the reasons that Coach Malzahn needs multiple quarterbacks that are ready to go every year. There is no friendly answer to that. He's going to get hurt at some point. He's going to. They have to have another guy ready. That's the only answer there is, because I can tell you Thomas has zero fear to run the ball. That's good and that's bad. So we'll just have to wait and see when and where.
That was really my only concern with him watching film.
He takes off, doesn't he? Like, he does not care.
Wow. It was really fun to watch it too.
Yeah.
Man, this next guy, UCF went into Gator County to get this guy. Got Quan Lee, they went to guy from Gainesville, downfield threat, slot guy, speedy guy that can add to that UCF fast mantra, that culture that they got going on offense. So just talk about Quan Lee a little bit, and what do you like about him in person and on film?
When I saw him in person, it was against their rival, and he was way too jacked up before the game. They had to separate, literally. Ooh. He was ready to go, and I'm sure the other kids were telling him they were going to beat him, but he was flat out the reason they won. And it was interesting because early in the game, they, as you would expect, they tried to get him the ball. They ran it with him, etc., and he got pounded a couple of times. Just got up, went back to the huddle. But as the game went on and they wore him out slowly, he was a guy that made the plays. Whether it was a first down catch, whether it was playing corner, he played both ways. He was always the determining factor to change where the ball was, field position, and then big plays. They couldn't guard him. So
really quick, for those that are watching, is he more of a speedy guy that can get downfield, or is he a route runner?
Speed and quickness. He's a running back in terms of how he plays, but he's a receiver. He's got really good hands. Over the shoulder is the hardest catch. He makes those very natural. His hand-eye coordination is not normal. He's going to have to work on route running like everybody. That's a lifelong learning skill for a receiver. Even Jerry Rice worked on route running. I just think you find ways to get him the ball. And the best comparison is he's like O'Keefe and Robinson in that the first guy is rarely going to get a good shot on him. Screens, you can almost tell the team we're running a screen. And if you attack it, we're going to fake it on the next play and send the blocker deep. Like, you have to be really careful. In the first guy, man, if you let a dynamic playmaker get space and he makes the first guy miss, there's no effort in what Gus does to call that play or the quarterback just it's not hard. And it's just God-given ability. That's why everybody runs them.
Yeah.
Because you may get 2 yards, then it's 73. You know what I mean? That's what you're looking for. Quan can do that. Now, again, you got to clean up route running with all freshman receivers, all of them. They think they know what they're doing. They're not even close. He's got to learn how to beat press coverage. Yeah. With a guy like Devontae Brown at UCF, I guarantee you in fall camp when Quan gets to UCF.
Welcome to college.
Yeah, and he puts his chest, puts his hand in Quan's chest. He's going to look at things different. Quan's going to struggle some in fall camp because he'll get in fights with guys because he's going to get
That's when that attitude will be big for him.
He's got to calm down, but the physical skill is crazy. He just has to be patient, which is his biggest detriment. He doesn't have much. Once he figures that out, it'll take care of itself. And his best attribute, go ahead and kick the ball to him. I dare you.
Cool.
Kick off and punt return. You are literally dumb
to
kick him the football. Right.
He's special. Okay.
Yeah. Like, he's the guy that he may or may not play receiver in the NFL, but I bet you money he's a kick return.
Special teams. Yeah. You can make some money off of that.
Yeah. Receivers, it's about your craft. Yeah. He's got a long way to go with that, like most receivers. As a kick returner, I'll take him. Absolutely.
And he's not an outside guy.
I think he could play it some, but receiver, he's better in the slot where he's off and you can't jam him. Because once he gets that first step going into his second step, man, he's close to full tilt.
Kind of like Johnny Ricketts.
Yeah. Explosive. First 3 steps, you have to get hands on him to disrupt his route, and some will and some won't. But when they don't, it can be 6. Again, it's about dynamic plays. That's Gus Malzahn's offense. Quan Lee fits it. He just has to fit in and learn the playbook and just get better technique-wise. So the God-given skill is there, and you won't outwork him. He really gets after it.
No, I think that was a big pickup for UCF. I think he was a Miami guy early on, the Hurricanes, and then they kind of
flipped him.
With them. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was big. That was big. What do you think? What do you talk about that a little bit? I know you said something.
I mean, I was talking to a buddy earlier, works with USA Today. Miami couldn't recruit themselves out of a wet paper sack last year, and that's why the staff got sacked, if you will. Yeah. They got fired. They were terrible.
They lost him.
And they didn't have a South Florida commitment, and they're in Miami. I mean, that just is an oxymoron. Not one.
Not one from South Florida?
No. There are conservatively 40 players from South Florida on a yearly basis that can play in Miami in some capacity.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But anyway, they lost respect from the local coaches and trainers and 7-on-7 coaches, and it was a wrap. So we'll see if Mario Cristobal can do better. College football will be better if Miami's at least relevant. Right now,
come on, man. Yeah.
They're not relevant.
Being an OG watching college football, you know that, man. Miami Hurricanes is a big football program. I hate when people talk down on Miami because they haven't had success in a while. I'm a Florida State guy, but I know Miami. Come on.
They need to be better than they are right now, though, because they are roller coaster.
And if you know high school football, that area breeds talent. So
it's overall, except for quarterback, it's holy cow. Yeah, it's great.
I think the only quarterback came out of South Florida was Lamar Jackson, and he was a running back or quarterback, but he's still MVP. So
there's a couple others, but I mean, overall, it's just been bad. That's the one spot.
Speed, that's what they breed.
Yep.
So this guy, I think this is a very important guy to add to the running back group. He's out of Milton, Georgia. Jordan McDonald. He can be that bruiser addition along with Bowser. He's a hard-nosed runner, but he also has good patience. So can you talk about McDonald a little bit? And do you think he can maybe come in and be a guy that can get some reps first season?
The deepest room in the UCF football coach's office is running back. If he plays as a freshman, I will be surprised, meaning like serious reps. Isaiah Bowser is going to get 75% of the carries. He should.
30 carries on, baby.
I've already talked to people over there.
Yeah, if he stays healthy.
Yeah. The only thing is, like, and this is the conundrum that every coach has. When do we pull him in a close game so he doesn't get the crap beat out of him? Because every running back does. Beyond what he did this, like, you can't predict injuries. I get that. No. He has to play less in terms of in the middle of the field, but that's Gus's offense. It's the twist and pull thing back and forth. And Johnny has to take more carries. And they also have Mark Anthony Richards. Yeah. I still think they're going to have a couple more kids that are possibly transfer after this spring. It is what it is. That's a good problem. That means you're bringing in good football players.
Yeah.
Jordan McDonald is one of those good football players.
Big guy.
He was 7A Player of the Year in the state of Georgia. This just in. They only have 7 classifications. It's the highest one. He was a dude.
That's a dude, man. For y'all that don't know.
They got him over Tennessee, South Carolina, and other SEC schools were recruiting him and stuff. That is a guy. And he's a great kid, too. I met him at Belton High School.
Personality.
Yeah, nice kid. He will pick up the offense faster than other kids do and all that. He's what you're looking for. Most importantly, he knows he's coming into a tough situation. I talked to him before Isaiah announced he was coming back. I said, what are you hearing? And he said, well, the coaches told me they're recruiting him hard. They don't know yet.
Yeah.
And he still went on to sign with UCF. It was like a couple of days before that took place where he signed in December. And I'm like, okay. I was wondering, like, if they bring him back, is he going to another school? And I would have understood because he can start and play at a lot of schools or at least be the number 2.
Yeah, literally.
But UCF has 3 guys ahead of him that are legit.
He would be a great 1-2 punch at a Power 5 school right now.
Mm-hmm.
But
like if he went to Indiana, like that's my alma mater.
Oh, man.
He'd have been in the top
run the
3.
ball. Those guys
run the ball. He'd have been in the top 3 really quick. And they've got running back history, but it's just bottom line. It's just a numbers crunch his freshman year. Out of all the kids we're going to talk about today, he's the one that will have playing time-wise the best opportunity to play as a sophomore. Yeah. Because Isaiah Bowser leads. I mean, that just opens the door for anything. I have no idea who it's going to be, but somebody's going to have to take that lead role to run that inside zone. Mm-hmm. McDonald loves that.
That's exactly what I got. And the key thing you said is keeping Isaiah Bowser healthy. You can't give him the ball 25, 30 times and then do it again the next week.
It's going to wear down. I think they learned that.
Yeah, they learned that after the Boise State game when he got hurt in the Louisville game because they were running him to death.
Yeah, he needs 25 at most, in my opinion. I know that's hard
because you got to get in Johnny Richardson and you got to get in Mark Anthony Richardson.
Mark, I think, is the most important for that inside zone. You give him 5 to 10 a game, every game. He's good.
But one of the most important things for a running back and what separates them from a lot of guys is being able to block. And I think Mark Anthony, he adds that extra, component to the offense. He's a bigger guy. Johnny's going to get ran over. But we know Johnny's a one-step guy. He's gone. So it's going to be hard to get all those guys the ball and still get good.
Here's the little thing. I hope they use some 2-back and use Johnny in the slot a little more next year. But he's got to pick up more of the offense, and that's more on Johnny. But when he's in the lineup and you put him out at slot, the other team's going to get scared to death because you cannot play man coverage with him. It doesn't work. And if you're a man-to-man team, stuff like that, you can't put a linebacker in. That's just that's a joke. They're going to have to come up with different ways because he's more dynamic than I even thought. And I was tooting his horn from earlier in the year. Like, he just makes everybody miss. Yeah. He's incredibly gifted. So, yeah, great problem to have at running back. I love Jordan McDonald.
Let me add to that problem because you got a guy coming out of Berkeley Prep. You know this guy, Xavier Townsend. Mm-hmm. He could play that running back, wide receiver kind of position like a Ryan O'Keefe. You can put him in the slot, get him on the end around play. Talk about Townsend a little bit. And does he play running back or wide receiver? Just maybe try to get some reps this season.
Townsend is the most unique guy out of the group offensively in terms of how they used him. His head coach at Berkeley Prep's a guy I know, Dominic Sayo. He's been around forever. And they made it to the state finals against Jamal Johnson's team. And Dominic told me, he goes, those guys were dudes. We just couldn't block them, which nobody else could either. But the bottom line is Townsend was his number 1 running back. He had another college kid. They were loaded. But Townsend's a $175. He just doesn't have any fat. He's cut like a wrestler. He needs to add a little weight, but they're projecting him long-term at receiver. Now, project, play, or do a little of both? We'll see.
We'll see.
And he's also, much like Quan Lee, they're pretty much the same player. You better be ready to center your nose on his belly button because he will fake you out of your shoestrings in a short area. So, again, Gus knows who he is. He's recruiting to his strengths.
Yeah.
This is a kid athletically that can play corner. Just put it in perspective. It's the hardest spot on the field. But he's an offensive guy. And they ran old school, nasty, downhill, counter football from the
high formation.
They would put him in wildcat. I mean, their offense was garbage in comparison to what some others
They got him the ball. Yeah, pound.
He would run over guys that were 30 pounds heavier than him.
Man,
he didn't care.
You need those hard-nosed runners.
He never complained. And then every now and then, their quarterback wasn't great, but every now and then they'd run play action, run him out of the slot, whatever. He would just run by a guy and catch touchdown. Very versatile. UCF, again, would like to play him at receiver, and I think he will. Do not discount him getting some carries. Jet sweeps. Definitely. You know how UCF used Navarro and different guys at quarterback?
He can score those spots from the 5 yards. Yeah,
go ahead and try to tackle him in space when they run quarterback sweep. Go ahead. And I didn't see him do it, but I guarantee you at some point he's going to run that and he's going to throw a little pass to like a tight end on the backside of the Gus likes those kind of plays. That's
how many fast guys? What was that? Xavier Townsend. You got Quan Lee. You got Ryan O'Keefe. You got Amari Johnson. You got Jalen Robinson.
Speed. UCF is Alabama speed.
That's speed.
A receiver, they're ridiculously fast. The only question is because they don't have a ton of size. Hudson is the key next year because I think he'll play the boundary. They don't have a lot of big guys. So that's another reason that a guy like Xavier, who's smart, he'll learn to play. You can find ways to extend drives, him in the backfield, throwing a screen to him, whatever. Very valuable. He'll play as a freshman in some capacity.
You just made a good point. A lot of speed, but no length. And you're losing a guy like Brandon Johnson. And you
11 touchdowns.
You lost Titus as well. So you're going to need a guy out of Southeast Bullock, Georgia. Tyler Griffin. And what we call him, on his head. This kid is 6'4", 200 pounds. Football and basketball guy, can dunk on guys, can jump over guys. So can you just talk about him a little bit and his explosiveness and his ball skills?
Much like with the Twins that play DB, this is a kid that I much prefer watching his basketball film because I'm from Indiana originally, but on a basketball court, regardless of your position, when you play man defense, there is nowhere to hide. He would take chances on plays that coaches would literally say don't do that, but because of his length, timing, explosiveness, it's a dunk the other way. Other guys would have got beaten and have been a layup against him. He can just do things because of his gifts. And then, he's, when he gets ready in the open court, everybody stands up. He's one of those kids athletically. Now, he's an introvert again. He's not a kid that he wouldn't interview with anybody.
Oh, okay.
So nobody knows him.
Right.
Just the way he played was different because they played him at running back at 6'4". And he could make guys miss. So that's very unusual. Like Brandon, who played the boundary receiver last year for UCF. Yeah. He a little bit of miss here, but he was going to run you over a guy once he got the ball. This kid might catch a 6-yard slant, stop, make the guy run by, the safety come up, shake him, and then take it down the side. He's a little different. He's got more gifts. And again, this is a great story. Georgia's a massive state, and he's a kid that is from the middle of nowhere. It's like an hour northwest of Savannah, which is one of my favorite cities in the country. I highly advise you visit if you have a chance. Yes, this is an area, there's nothing. There's nothing around that town. They have nothing to do. There's cows around. That's it. It's not heavily recruited. If he'd have been from Gwinnett County or Cobb County around Atlanta.
4-star.
Yeah, he'd have had all the offers. Yeah. Nobody wants to go scout it. This is where the Auburn connections came in. It just wasn't in Alabama. They know every freaking head coach in South Georgia because Auburn has always recruited the county schools. Gus brought that from the state of Alabama down to the state of Orlando. And they're recruiting the Georgia kids.
Another Georgia kid.
Upside is really high.
Yeah.
I think he'll be in the rotation again. The only spot on offense that they're like super thin is that boundary spot right now until otherwise proven. They have some guys, but nobody's proven it to do anything.
But
why couldn't he play? Why couldn't he
has to be. Brandon, losing 11 touchdown guy.
That's a lot.
That's gonna hurt, man.
Yeah, Brandon, it is.
It might have not been that productive with the receiving yards, but he'll get you that touchdown in the red zone. He's a big guy you can throw the ball to. So Tyler Griffin, for those that are watching, do some research on Tyler Griffin and watch a little bit of his film, basketball as well, because he's a guy that can jump over and add that extra receiver maybe to bring a safety over top with his height. My only concern with him is he needs to put some more weight on because, Gus Malzahn likes to throw those wide receiver screens. Cornerback come blow him up and get right to Ryan.
Yeah, he'll gain a one. He'll be 225 when he leaves.
Yeah, he's 6 feet. He's a big guy, so he has time. He has a summer.
He's really long. He has
really
bad weight. Yeah, he won't even look thick, but he'll put on some more weight.
I like Tyler Griffin. You like this next guy? He's out of Ponte Vedra Beach, Jacksonville area.
Yeah.
Ponte Vedra. Sorry, guys. From the Jacksonville area, Grant Stevens, 6'4", 220-pound tight end guy that can, add a little addition to Alec Holler. He can block well, plays that H-back kind of tight end. Can you just talk about him a little bit and what he can add? Because, you see that tight end position, according to you, is going to be something that is one of the most important positions that UCF needs to fill. Because you only got Alec Holler, and he's an experienced guy himself. You got the other guy, but we know that. So what do you like about Grant Stevens?
Stevens is the new age tight end.
Yeah.
He's going to be extended from the line of scrimmage. He will be an immediate addition to the roster in terms of Gus being able to run his full playbook, and that simply means the following. I could do a whole show on this. His offense was not complete last year because they didn't have H-backs that he trusted. This is a kid that you can put in there. He can block a little bit. That's his weak. He's get bigger. He's about 225, 230 now.
He's more of a receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead.
But you can walk up to the line of scrimmage, put him at the H-back, tight end, whatever. Just throw screens to him and little things. Think about the tight end at Georgia. That guy scored like the winning touchdown on the national title game. I'm not saying he's not as athletic as Bauer. That guy's freakish. But at the same time, he can make a lot of plays. And most importantly, he can be in there with either Holler, or of course they got the kid that came over from Florida Gamble. They finally have a 3 they can trust, and maybe there's somebody else. I don't know how it's going to play out. They may get another trade. I don't know.
Right.
They need more numbers there so they can run 2 tight end sets, what they call 12 personnel. 1 running back, 2 tight ends. That's something Gus wants to do. It's something he did with Cam Newton.
Yeah.
And long-term with Thomas Castellanos, when you run the ball, 12 personnel is important. They couldn't do everything last year. He's going to play some, and especially in the red zone, watch for him. He might catch 10 passes, 4 of them be touchdowns next year because they're just 3-yard, play action plays.
He's a guy that can take the block, leak out to the flats right there.
Yeah, a couple of plays.
Turn that blocks, 15 yards. Yeah.
Then on the next one, he acts like he's going to, and then he's wide open. That play's been in the NFL for 50 years. Yeah.
They need that X factor tight end. I think you made a great point with that, especially with Alec Holler. He was good, but hey, if you can add an extra guy similar to him.
Yeah, he needs to have some of the workload taken off of him too, because
there you go.
Alec played a lot.
Yeah, he really did. But he impressed, though. He impressed.
Yeah, he's a good player. But now you have guys you can rotate. It's going to increase the productivity, his blocking, the ability to catch. Yeah. It's going to help the offense.
Yes, sir. Yeah, he played that flex tight end guy. He's an athlete in space as well. So
absolutely.
I think that pretty much covered the offense as well. Now I think we got one more group left. We got one more group left, which is the offensive line group. And I'm gonna let Brian take over this because he has a surprise for you guys, So I'm gonna let Brian take over.
They're gonna get Kittler. He's already signed. He's from Dallas. Really good player. He played tackle mostly in high school. Now this is a kid that is not only good, but he's versatile. He's been coached. He's been trained. He's 290. He is going to end up being Matthew Lee's, shall we say, understudy, which is great news. He could be the guy that has the biggest impact on anybody in this class. Because if the quarterback doesn't get the ball from the center, it doesn't go well. He's going to be Matthew Lee's backup probably next year. So I don't like having a freshman as your backup, but that's just the way it's worked out. And that's where Coach Grant is moving him. So
he can play center and guard. He can play multiple positions. Okay.
The problem is center is so critical. If your quarterback is not comfortable with who's up there, it doesn't go well.
That's a fact.
That's some of the ins and outs of just talking to coaches over the years. They always freak out when they have to change centers. Even if it's over one season, they just don't like it. Too bad. They all graduate at some point,
Right.
or at least leave. The point is this. Kittler can play guard, like you said, but he's going to play center. And in high school, he played tackle. His team wasn't any good. They just put him somewhere where he could be an athlete, etc. The other point is this. To my knowledge, Miguel Maldonado is not going to UCF. I don't know the whole backstory there. Maybe it's because of the transfer portal. I do not know. I do not expect him to sign, but that's the last I heard. I haven't inquired about it. The other part is, to my knowledge, and I got a text today, I expect Leyton Nelson not to sign with UCF. I heard he's going to another school. I'm going to let him make his own announcement, if you will. If he surprises me, then the information I've gotten multiple times is false, which means he changed his mind. The person that gave me this information, the info, is not wrong. It's recruiting. Sometimes it doesn't work out. And this is a kid that was a national recruit in UCF's backyard. There's no nice way to say it. It is a major loss. There's no political correctness. However, they got two kids in the transfer portal that are also offensive tackles, and they got Jackson coming back. They got him for next year. They got really lucky. They'll be good this next year, but in the next class, they need 2 or 3 offensive linemen from the high school rank. Start building your own depth. At least one of them needs to be a dude that can play tackle from the high school level. Coach Hand can coach. He's a heck of a coach. It just takes so much longer because it's so technical. O-line is something they need.
Yeah, and they're surely losing guys next year. It ain't no if and.
Well, they're going to lose
some guys.
I mean, Jackson. They're going
Jackson, I think.
Lee's going to probably go on.
A couple of those transfers might go try to, give it a chance if they have a good year.
Yeah.
So man, that was tough for everyone that's watching. Brian just put some tough news on you.
Yeah, well, it's just the way it is. The other piece, and I don't know the full story. I haven't talked to him today. Wydner, for anybody that's followed on Twitter or whatever, he's Coco's high school quarterback this past year. Had a bunch of offers early, didn't decide real early, and all the scholarships went away. He visited UCF last Friday. Then he went to Rutgers this past weekend. He's originally a New Jersey guy where Rutgers is. I think he's going to pick Rutgers. It's just my gut feel, but I have no idea. It's not a scholarship spot. It's a walk-on.
Walk-on spot. Okay.
I don't know what in the world Rutgers situation is, but they stink. Yeah. It's Rutgers.
It's opening.
That's his home. Yeah, it's his home state.
It's like come here. It's like you got UCF with all the momentum and stuff, but then you got Rutgers is like, come on, we'll start you tonight.
Yeah, well, I don't know if he'll start there, but
no, I just feel like Rutgers needs help.
Oof.
But yeah,
have you seen them play?
Yeah, trust me. I'd rather watch the basketball.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's more decent, but it's still struggling as well.
The other thing is, to my knowledge, there's only one kid, and I don't know what he's going to do. I forget the kid's name. He's from Jacksonville. He'd signed with Air Force. It didn't work out. I don't know what happened or if he was even on the roster last fall. He's from Trinity Christian in Jacksonville, corner, that he got offered. I don't even know how to classify him. Is he a transfer? Did he end up there? I don't know. But he's a long corner. That's a possibility, but we'll see. Gus Malzahn and or somebody from his staff should be having a press conference at some point in the next 2 to 3 days. Normally it would be on signing day, but I know Gus has been with his wife, Christy, as she's been in the hospital. So, good wishes to Christy on that. I don't know the full situation, but they had the big recruiting weekend this past weekend, and Gus wasn't there, and Gus loves recruiting. That tells me that it's pretty serious. So, best wishes to Gus Malzahn and the rest of his family. So,
yes, sir.
With that, I'm going to wrap it up. Tomorrow night, going to talk a little bit about not just UCF, because I wanted to get this out of the way to make it easier because, pretty much the class is wrapped up.
Yeah, tomorrow's the day.
Miami and Florida and a little bit of Florida State have some business to take care of, and it's going to impact the class of 23 for UCF and everybody else. And I want to talk about that. I'll do a podcast later in the evening, probably like 9 o'clock. I have to wait that long because these kids take forever and they drag it out. So tomorrow's podcast will be super, super late. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm not going to give half the information. I'll have Leyton Nelson news, and I'll have news on who Miami did or didn't get and who Florida got, because who they do and don't get this year impacts how they recruit the next class. And the class of 23, as I've said a gazillion times, is loaded in this state and really across the country. But in Florida, it's a special year. It changes how UCF recruits too.
As Malzone only got one guy from 2023, right?
Caden Hall, another Apopka kid.
Another
kid I want. But there are a handful of other kids,
they're looking at.
And I've got a few of them.
That event went well too, man. If they don't get some guys from that, I don't know what went wrong. They
will, but it's January. Kids aren't going to make a lot of decisions on January.
They might forget, they might have another event.
Yeah. This is what I call the building blocks. I know a few kids from this past weekend's event are going to come back to camp. They already told me, like unsolicited. That's how you
build that relationship over time.
That is correct. If you don't do that, you get your hind end kicked. Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's not how you win. You have to win some of these in-state battles that Alabama and Florida and something. UCF is part of it now. They need to get their quote-unquote share of the elite guys. It's the difference between being top 20 and not.
It's the difference between being in that big four that that they talk about. So
I
compete against those.
Yeah, guys. I think they're going to make that move slowly and gradually. I don't think they're going to get 7 5-stars next year, but they need to get one of those guys soon. It's just a perception thing. It just is. And somebody has to be the first to do it, though.
The stars are starting to be manipulated anyway, so you don't know if a guy's a 3-star or a 5-star, wherever he's playing at. It's like being manipulated. I think they got a few 4-stars this season.
No, they did, but I mean, they need to have half their class like that instead of 4 or 5 guys. Yeah. Whether they're ranked there or not may not be necessarily true for that class, but it impacts how the other next class looks at it. Fair or not, perception is reality, and UCF is well aware of that.
Yeah, and I want to hear from people that's watching. You guys, give me your thoughts. Who do you think maybe the top recruit is, and how do you think Gus Malzahn and the staff did? But I definitely want Brian to give me his last thoughts. I know you talked a lot. You reviewed in every individual recruit. So just give me your overall thoughts of how was this recruit class? Josh Heupel's gone. You got Gus Malzahn and his boys in. He said he was going to be recruiting like his hair was on fire.
Yeah.
So just give me your last thoughts on how do you think he did?
I think he overachieved in year one because you got to remember he came in on the 15th of February last year. And that was just him. That didn't count his staff. Most of his staff, he kind of knew who it was going to be, but I mean, it's a process. Man. He got Travis Williams to come in from Miami. He was going to be at Miami. That would have been recruiting against you. Travis at Miami is scary. He can really recruit. But here's the key. They've gotten a full year plus now with the 23 kids. They have a chance with the Gus always used laying the foundation. This is the next step. There's nowhere to hide now. Everybody knows that UCF's coming after them. They're trying to get the best of the best. They may not get all of them right away, but some of them will transfer. But it's going to be harder to grade their classes, but their roster has really improved in terms of talent. And again, that's do you win games? Checkbox, yes or no. They're going to win more games now. Like an 8-win season to me moving forward should be the bottom. And you'll have a year your quarterback gets hurt or whatever. But they're going to have the talent to compete for Big 12 titles within their first 3 years if quarterback works out. I can say that about most schools. They're not going to struggle at corner, receiver. The skill spots, we're good to go.
Yeah, really.
You got to continue to build depth on the lines, and quarterback play's got to take care of itself.
Yes.
That's the only two things. So I'm very excited about UCF football is the short answer.
That was good. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you, Brian.
Absolutely. So for everybody out there, thank you very much. Please like and subscribe. Hit that notification button. Tomorrow, again, I apologize. Like he and I like to do shows around 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Yeah. I'm completely wasting everybody's time by doing that because there's going to be 2 or 3 kids.
Brian's schedule is all over the place. He's always working. So you got to respect him there.
I've been doing this way too long. They're going to drag it out to 7 p.m. or something. I can't talk about Florida's class if not all the kids have committed. You know what I mean? It's just stupid. Yeah. You want to do kind of a state of Florida, take some questions from some UCF fans. Where do we rank? And then slightly preview the 23 class the next few days. Right. That'll be Thursday, Friday. I think that UCF has a chance to make a gap closing class this next haul, depending on how they want to do it. But the skill talent in this state, even by Florida standards, is off the charts. In 23, receiver, corner, etc. It is full of dudes. Yeah. So I'm really excited, and I'm I've already started at Inside the Nights doing previews on 23 kids. I'm telling you, you need to read those because some of these kids may not list UCF just yet, or they got an offer, they're not sure. This stuff changes constantly. Jalen Martinez wasn't on UCF's radar. Damari and Jakari, they weren't. It's just true. At this point, they had no interest. Where did they sign? Yeah. There's a reason I'm doing these. This is not coincidental.
Yeah.
There are some kids they're going to get from like South Florida or Jacksonville, etc. There's a reason I'm doing it. I'm going next week to Jacksonville to do a special thing with kids in that area, like a little mini combine. Yeah. Colin Hurley is going to be the main quarterback. He's the best quarterback prospect I've ever scouted in my life at that age. He's already got an offer from UCF, and he was like as good a player as they had at this past weekend. He's going to come to UCF's camp this summer. They
have to establish that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long process. He's a freshman in high school, and he's ready.
I mean, but that's what it takes, though. And Alabama goes against guys when they're in middle school. They guys can be 10 years old. They're going to recruit.
Yep, that's what I mean. Like Gus knows that you have to offer underclassmen, and they went out of their way to give him the red carpet treatment. Yeah. I'm going to go scout him. I'm going to talk about a lot of kids like that. And it's fun. The next 2 years for me will be the best 2 years of my scouting life. And I've done it over 20 years. That's how loaded it is. 23 is great. 24 is right on that verge too. Just need to see a few more kids, but it's loaded as well. I'm excited. So
that's awesome. Thank you. And just my last thoughts, man. Just like Brian said, thank you guys for interacting in the comments, showing Brian's podcast some love. I think he really deserves this. He works really hard, so thank you guys. Keep having those discussions in the comments. I know I love reading them. It's an open discussion, so it's beautiful. All salutes to Brian.
I appreciate it. It is fun reading them because that's, you want to hear something. I have to, I'm not a mind reader. Please send me a message, post a comment, whatever. You can. My Twitter handle's there for those of you watching this on, Twitter is one thing. I put up some of the podcasts, but if you're on YouTube, make sure you get over to Twitter. So everybody have a great day. Thank you very much.